the running of the individual directorates, which are all headed by original civil servants and technical people.
Chairman, I'm not requesting the minister whether he's apologetic about those decisions. In recruiting those persons, was the civil service involved as is required by law?
Mr. Chairman, whatever I did, I really ensured that whatever needed to be done was done, given the discussions with the Chief Director to make sure that we did not break any code. But I think the issue, Mr. Chairman, may be beyond what you have stressed, is whether it's suppressing the work of the ministry and members of the ministry and their ability to rise in their work. And I suspect that with all that has been done over these 3 years, it has been an enhancing factor and very promotional to the type of work that we now have the capacity to do.
My question was specific, just for the record. Was the civil service involved as required by law in those recruitment processes? And maybe additional to it, is it true that some of them are paid more and higher than the traditional appointees of the civil service working with the finance ministry? Thank you, Chair.
Mr. Chairman, I don't know that I broke any civil service code, because I did ensure that the Chief Director, we work together in all of these appointments. Mr. Chairman, we also have situations which have persisted where certain development partners support expertise to be brought to the ministry, and certainly they have certain different remuneration packages, which is not really aligned with the civil service. And I think quite a number of development partners have supported some of these people we have brought to the ministry.
Chairman, on pensions, you supervise SNIT. There are reports of some of their investment that are raising questions and probably not yielding best returns that guarantees retirement income security for many of the persons retiring on SNIT, not just on second tier. Do you intend to do something about it? Should you become Minister of Finance, to improve the investment portfolio of SNIT after an evaluation of their current doings relative to investment as required by the MPRA?
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I think that has been a long-running issue, and I'm sure you may be even more familiar with it than I am. With regards to looking at SNIT's administrative cost, versus the funds and returns that they have, and so that is going to have to take a look in as to the portfolio classes that they have, and how to ensure that what you are advocating, becomes the culture at SNIT. It seems to be a more administrative organization than an investment organization, and I think it's incumbent on us to really look at the direction going forward. But I think it's a concern that both the current chairman and the Director General have had, and we need to trigger it and get some timelines on this restructuring to give them more precision.
Chairman, I hold with me here Minister of Finance handing over notes, Volume 4, November 2020. I may not be fair to you if you don't have your copy, but I should think that it comes under your signature and referring to a page on ESLA and ESLA bond. And this is what you have to say in your handing over note. As part of government plans to refinance the legacy debt of the energy sector, an independent special purpose vehicle, ESLA PLC, was incorporated to issue debt securities for the purpose of refinancing the energy sector debt. Subsequent to its incorporation in 2017, the company had issued bonds with a face value of 7,863.75 million. But this is what is of significance to me. You say ESLA bond won an international award. You want to take credit. Few years ago, you said ESLA was nuisance tax. Do you concede today that ESLA, after all, is not a nuisance tax?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I think it's, I really appreciate your taking a hand in over notes to look at them. I mean, we have, even gone further, as you see in this year's budget, to do further, sort of Delta Fund for that. So yes, we have found it useful to have had ESLA in place.
Chairman, I needed this because when President Mahama and the NDC introduced ESLA in 2015, and we were walking on the streets at that time with the demonstrations and others, you said nuisance tax, nuisance tax. Today you are issuing bonds in the name of what is nuisance. But that leads me, Chairman, to Amalgamated Trust Bank. What's the status? You came to Parliament for 3 billion, and in particular, the financing of NIB, National Investment Bank. What indications do you have to improve the liquidity and standing of NIB as an important financial institution for the state?
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much, and I think maybe this is also my kickback to you. Certainly, GATT was denigrated quite a bit as to the objectives of that. But GATT, as you know, was clearly part of the whole construct of President Akufo-Addo's vision of indigenous Ghanaian ownership. And through that, we've been able to save some 4 or 5 Ghanaian banks to be in the SME space for us. That's good. We did give some resources to ADB to make sure that our GRIC was sustainable, and we are going to look at putting some more money into it through the National New Development Bank that we have. NIB has been a difficult one because of the unwieldy nature of it, etc. But NIB for us would be that industrial bank. We have put some money into that. We need to resolve final execution as to what we do. So you have ADB doing agric, and then you have NIB doing industry, but not as a commercial bank. And so the issue of rationalization, I think, is at the juncture. But I think both the Minister of Finance and the Bank of Ghana are in agreement as to how to keep, as to the new NIB that we want. And I'm sure that by mid-year you have a clarity on how we are going to position that.
Chairman, I want clarity from the Minister. What future can you assure us of NIB? I'm aware that some 500 million arising out of their 25% shares in Nestle was given to them. Subsequent to GATT, some other 800 million was given to them, even without direction or indication what the purpose of the money is. What will be the future of the NIB under you as Minister for Finance? Thank you, Chair.
Mr. Chairman, I don't think that is a difficulty. We are very clear on our support for agric, and therefore that is why GATT puts some money into agric. We have taken our time to understand NIB, to see the structure we want. We don't want it to be a commercial bank. We expect that it to be an industrial bank, and therefore to be able to look at their representation in the regions as they have to support industry. And therefore we expect, as you see, we've kept it alive, also 1.3 billion CDs over this time, and we need to now assess the final numbers and amounts that we'll put into it for NIB to become the original industrial bank that it was meant to be, not as a retail bank.
Chairman, that's noted. In your handing over notes, part of the reasons that accounted for Ghana being blacklisted by the EU, you make an observation and the challenges, and I quote, Chairman, with your indulgence, Ghana was identified as a jurisdiction with strategic deficiencies in the AML-CFT regime, and therefore Ghana was placed on the Financial Action Task Force, FATF grade list, and the EU list. What accounted for it, and what are you doing to deal with those identified strategic deficiencies? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Yes, this is something we sort of unfortunately inherited, but really in the milieu of all of the banking issues that we have, I guess it was not expected. We have dealt, with this issue since we came into governance, and I think maybe a week or two ago we did get a letter from FATF, basically agreeing that we have done all of the things that are required to be done for us to be taken off the list. What they need finally is a physical inspection, and they are expecting to come as soon as practicable for that physical inspection, for then give us the nod. So, Mr. Chairman, yes, the beneficial ownership issue has been sorted out with Registrar General. The issue of people understanding what money laundering is, I know has been taken into consideration. The issue of NGOs and how they operate is also being looked at. So lots of work, Mr. Chairman, has occurred. We've gotten this gratifying letter from FATF, and we expect for them to come for inspection as quickly as possible, so that...
Chairman, I appreciate that. The Honorable Zuera of Salaga asked you about the paradigm shift from taxation to production. Now you are back to taxation, introducing new taxes not akin to the period in 2017. But again, in your handing over notes, you make this observation: implement radical fiscal measures to raise the tax to GDP ratio from current 13% to 20% by 2023. Should we be expecting more taxes? How do you intend to work this? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Africa or West Africa, I think, maybe somewhere between the range of 70 and 20. Europe is around 32. My feeling really in observing these 4 years is that there are certain tax handles that have not been approached at all, such as property taxes, and that should be, and then also illicit financial flows. But truly, the intervention of digitalization is key here, Mr. Chairman, and that really will completely revolutionize the tax base, because all of us will then be taxed appropriately. Effective digitalization could almost mean that I could send you by April 30th what I believe to be your tax obligations are to help you file that. Also, as you know, in conversion of the TIN numbers to the new national ID numbers, move us from some 3 million to 15.5 million, and that's bringing more people to the tax net. So I think it's more an issue than of compliance as opposed to saying that you have increased more taxes. Thank you.
Chairman, back to Ajapa. You've reported in this budget your intention was to monetize our mineral royalties for a certain period and to raise some amount of money between 500 to 1 billion US dollars. In this budget, there is some report that our mineral royalties performed with an additional 230 million Ghana cedis. Don't you consider that this would have just been a windfall for any special vehicles for purposes of Ajapa if this had happened?
Mr. Chairman, I think when we make fundamental innovative strategies, we really think of the medium to long term. How are we positioning the country in a new plane? And so, yes, in all such policy decisions, there may be changes in the way, but fundamentally, do we believe that we are moving towards an equity orientation which will sustain us better and support our foreign exchange regime and create Ghana as that? So yes, there may be some short-term ripples, but the nation has to take a long-term view when we get into policy changes of this nature. And I believe it is time to look at equity opportunities.
Thank you, Chairman. You are talking about, in your media review, we all appreciate the fact that 2020 have been an extraordinary year. Taxes have not performed as it should. You anticipated that you would have loss of revenue, if I quoted you right, about 25 billion in respect of COVID. Now, you also got some resources, including support from the World Bank. How much is it costing you to fix COVID going forward?
Thank you very much. I mean, I think as you saw, we ended up one way or the other with an 11.4 or so percent budget and deficit, and we are targeting 9.5% budget deficit for this year, hoping that by 2024 will revert to the under 5%, which is by law. So really, in terms of those ratios, that is what we are dealing with. I'm not sure one can talk about recovery. One can talk about the transformation, which hopefully will enhance productivity so that we are normalized again by 2023, 2024. So yeah, difficult year, but looking forward with hope that we would recover and do much better.
Chairman, I'm back to Bank of Ghana. You know that the Bank of Ghana Act gives you a certain opportunity and leverage, but to stay within the law, you came to Parliament to borrow 10 billion. Parliament granted you approval. Yesterday, I heard you give a figure of 22 billion as financing from the Bank of Ghana. Will you concede that is a breach of the requirement of the law?
Mr. Chairman, I did concede yesterday to 10 billion and had mentioned that I had people talking about 22 billion. But I think it's a 10 billion that I still stand to, and I'll investigate anything else that is purported to have been spent by the Bank of Ghana.
Chairman, when the minister assumed office as Minister for Finance, those were his heydays. He came to Parliament with some pros that Ghana was losing enormously from the grant of tax exemptions. At the time, it was estimated that it cost the state of Ghana not less than 2 billion in terms of exemptions that we granted. He brought a bill to Parliament. He's since shy away from the bill. What's the status of the bill, and what do you want to do to fill in those loopholes of tax exemptions? Thank you, Chair.
A very good question, Mr. Chairman. I think there are sort of three major areas that, if you kindly give me the nod, will be areas that we are going to focus on. And this has to do with issue of revenue collection, the property area, the tax exemption area, and the digitalization are going to be key areas for me in the 4 years that we have. So let me assure you that these three will be areas of keen interest to ensure domestic revenue mobilization.
Chairman, Minister say area of keen interest. It was of interest to you in 2017. Why did you give a terminal depth to it into 2021? We don't have a legal framework that deals with those grants that more or less is leaking the public purse in terms, that's loss of revenue if you want to put it in an economic opportunity cost concept. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I mean, a lot has been done in 2017 to 2020, and we are grateful for that. Some things are yet to be done, and these are the three that I'm committing to us doing before that time.
So, Chairman, I'm particularly happy that the Minister has considered on ESLA. I've looked at your tables in the budget statement, both 2020 media review and 2021. ESLA by today have raked in about 20 billion to date, not just helping you retire the problems in the energy sector, but additional proceeds projected even up to 2024 to reach 40 billion Ghana cedis. But Minister, you recall that in 2017, when you presented the budget statement, in particular Appendix 2A, page 160, you have said that the NDC had left a fiscal balance of 10.3% on the old GDP basis. However, this budget deficit before arrears, and you recall you came back to report on some 7 billion with some offset of 5 billion when you dealt with matters of other outstanding expenditures. Does that give you an opportunity to correct the real fiscal balance as you reported in 2017? Thank you, Chair.
Mr. Chairman, I think we sort of worked on the new series and had those numbers. I'm not sure that, I think we can accept, Mr. Chairman, that Ghana's economic and fiscal health were not the best in 2016. And that is very clear to everybody. We can talk about the nuances of it or not, and that as of 2019, we are in a much better place. And I suppose that is governance. I'm really looking forward to what is seeming like a new working relationship between both sides, given the equality of strength in Parliament, for us to manage this economy together in a transparent way, clarity, so that we move forward.
Chairman, I've had to raise this because when you do a mathematical computation of it, because we are guided by record, when you make reference to numbers, and for instance, during the NDC era, you use up to October, September, not end of year, probably the fiscal deficit would have been 6.1% and not 10.3%, particularly when the Auditor General insisted that those claims were disallowed and not as you reported that you had paid those arrears. Will you agree to that? Thank you, Chair.
Mr. Chairman, I think we ourselves at the ministry sent this to the Auditor General. He did not initiate it because we were looking to understand what the facts of the matter were. So obviously not through any mischief, we ourselves subjected it to what he eventually came up with. And so those were then the new numbers that were recorded.
Yeah, so once you are still there, you recall that when you came to Parliament, you reported the debt to GDP, you gave us a nominal figure of 122 billion, and the Auditor General argued at the time that you had overestimated it by 2 billion. Is that correct? Thank you, Chair.
I can't verify that one for you, Mr. Chairman.
What, in computing yours, must I use the exchange rate of December or I should use the exchange rate of yesterday in order to do the computation?
Mr. Chairman, I think really all of those issues that every government, but we try to standardize as much as possible to be able to do that. And I mean, I think no mischief intended. We really need to then move forward, accept a baseline, and then see how we make things better for the country.
Chairman, I should be concluding, noting that we are keeping to the protocol and mindful of the state of the minister. Back to the discussion on capping. GetFund, you came to Parliament, took 1.5 billion in the name of GetFund. How much of it have been disbursed so far?
Mr. Chairman, I know that we have done some disbursement getting to the end of the year. I'm not on top of exactly what the numbers are, but I think we have made good progress since we're able to raise some more money.
Chairman, what is the minister describing as good progress? GetFund contractors are crying and weeping. They have not been paid. They have outstanding certificates which is still with GetFund. You came for 1.5 billion, not even $500 million of its equivalent in cities have been made available to the GetFund. Are you aware of the precarious financial situation of GetFund, Minister?
Mr. Chairman, we have, and therefore, as I mentioned, we did raise some more money by year end, which has been done, and ensure that that will be disbursed accordingly.
Minister, it's been said that there is some company which has become an interface between Ministry of Finance. We know, Chairman, it is not acceptable if you take money, that company, that interface. He didn't ask that. He asked his GetFund question. He didn't ask that.
There's a question, Mr. President.
The interface.
Yes, I think.
Minister, mine is not even a question. It's a commentary. You see, GetFund is being subjected to another layer in order to get approval for releases. I'm saying it strongly that that is not acceptable. If we have earmarked money for GetFund, and you are aware of that. If you cannot make their earmarked funds available to them, and you borrow against their earmarked funds, and you are setting up a quasi-vehicle to subject GetFund before they get payment, we don't find that acceptable. That's the entity, and Chairman, you are right. Muntaka referred to that account name company, which is the vehicle, but it's not the same as my question. I'm just saying that if GetFund have their money, let them disburse their money. Why subject GetFund to another vehicle? Are you aware of the existence of that vehicle?
Mr. Chairman, yes. Your colleague did mention that, and I did commit to to look at that, to discuss it.
Do you have any plans to change your position on the capping of the road fund?
I think that has been, brought. I mean, if we look at what we have done with the road fund in terms of payments to it and also raising funds for it, I'm not clearly certain about that they have been penalized in any way. But I think, the issue of roads are important, and we will sit with the minister to see how best to rationalize it. But in truth, the total amount of money that went to road funds last year was certainly more than the uncapped amount because of certain instruments that we brought to bear for road funds.
Chairman, to note that it is reported by the IMF that Ghana loses between 8 to 10 billion per year, about 2 to 3% of our GDP to the grant of tax exemption. So we expect that, Minister, this must be dealt with as expeditiously and with the same enthusiasm and excitement with which you came in 2017, seeking to pluck and deal with rigidities with the introduction of that your abundant tax exemption bill. Can we be assured that you will walk the talk on this matter? Thank you, Chair.
Mr. Chairman, the ports are for both revenue and trade facilitation. I suspect that even if you were to look at the current contract between ICAMS and CO, it has been situated at trade, which we need to look at to ensure that the ownership of the future of that contract is embedded with GRA. So I'm not sure of your assertion of that. In terms of protecting our revenues that come to ports, we are not going to sort of recede from that, and I don't think we have done anything to stop facilitation in any way. But yes, we will look to continue to collaborate as much as
Chairman, because it's under oath, the Honorable Chairman was not under oath when he gave us that assurance. Fiscal table to accommodate energy sector expenditure, financial sector expenditure. Will you revise the fiscal table to respond to accepted international standard, as I was assured by the majority leader? Thank you.
Very well.
He hasn't answered that.
Thank you very much. I think the leader read the budget, assured you of that, and even held a brown bag, so you can be assured that.
He only had a new brown bag. It was not like yours. I need an assurance.
I think we went through it yesterday, in which we did indicate the new normal, that we'll do that. That we also wanted to really complete, in a sense, the financial sector review, so that we do it. And given the ballooning of debt to GDP across the globe, it is also a time that we can look at that and merge it. But let's not leave any doubt that it was not identified, and therefore it was an addition which will be there, and we will hopefully by mid-year or year-end, when we know the full numbers, collapse it into one for you. Thank you very much. That's the assurance.
Oh, Chairman. Now, Katie, what are you doing here? Minister, whilst seeing you off, Joy FM have reported gold export syndicate, and the state is losing money. Their exposition, will you be interested in watching it and take appropriate steps for the recovery of those lost revenues?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I did respond to a question about how we are going to tackle this issue of gold, and to really even look at maybe a new model similar to cocoa board to see what conditions of people, I believe, have been made better by the grace of the Almighty. The President has been strong in fighting corruption, and if you see what his instruction has led to very much increase.
The President or you in fighting corruption?
Very much increase our allocation. I believe we can do it, and I'm ready to support that. God bless us all.
Well, now you're discharged. You hear from us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Whew.